Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyles Wednesday right here on Danny Clinkscale's Reasonably Irreverent Commentary. It's brought to you by the Exit Room of Lee's Summit, and look forward tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, on my Reasonably Irreverent Facebook page to a Facebook Live presentation from the Exit Room. Live from the Exit Room, we're going to have a guest, Dennis Leonard, Royals Hall of Famer, and talk to a couple of our great sponsors. And if you go to the website and join the Clinkscale Club, you can go to a future event. We'll have a couple of winners from the Clinkscale Club at that particular event. And, of course, every other Wednesday here on the Arts and Lifestyle Wednesdays, presented by the Exit Room of Lee's Summit, we talk music with Timothy Finn, and I like doing a whole lot of the things that I do at DannyClinkscale.com, and certainly none is more fun than diving into music with Tim, who of course is from In Kansas City Magazine, and you can hear him on 90.9 The Bridge with John Hart every Thursday. And as usual, we are going to get into a lot of different things, from power pop to jazz greats and a whole lot more as we delve into music and take the tangents that we do sometimes. It's a lot of fun for me, and I always enjoy visiting with Timothy Finn, and we will do so next.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee's Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events, and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code Clinkscale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee's Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention, and our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
Get a refreshing change of your expectations of a sports bar and restaurant at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Matt Llewellyn's welcoming spot at Clinton Parkway and Cassold covers all the bases, like their own handcrafted beers and all the televisions you need for great sports viewing, but it's the large, varied, and delicious menu that stands apart. From a favorite of mine like the awesome ahi tuna appetizer to great sandwiches, outstanding pizza, and truly fantastic entrees, the 23rd Street Brewery has it all. Matt and his friendly staff make it that much more enjoyable. Food until 10, fun until late. The 23rd Street Brewery is a can't-miss stop when you are in Lawrence. Tim, we start to move into the summer season, although it's far from summer yet, but we're starting to get outdoor shows and things like that, and it's a time of year when I think everybody just starts to feel better in general. Not that we don't enjoy music during the wintertime, but it's kind of a different feel right now.
Right. Not only do we have obviously more outdoor shows in the summer, but the schedule picks up. There are more shows to go to indoors and outdoors. And this year looks pretty good. Every venue, whether it's the Folly, Starlight, or Crossroads, or what we used to call Sandstone. It's
Right.
Providence Medical Center Amphitheater.
Yes.
They all have posted, most of their schedule, and there's a lot of good shows coming around.
Anything in particular, like down the road? We're going to talk about some specific things over the next week or two coming up, but down the road, anything that particularly is exciting or different for Kansas City, maybe
I don't
this
know
year?
about-
Or is it just sort of, people that that people want to see in the summertime?
Right. I don't know if there's anything different. I know that there was just a show announced last week. Mary J. Blige is coming to Starlight, and
Right.
whenever she comes to town, it's a big deal because she's probably one of the most eminent stars or personalities in music in general, but specifically in her genre, which is like soul, hip hop, and she's kind of like the Aretha Franklin of her genre. So she's coming with Nas to Starlight in August, and that's a big deal. I think it's probably the most exciting show of the summer, and there are many, but that's in the top 2 or 3 if it's not number 1.
How is this town rate sort of as a hip-hop type of town?
I think probably second tier. We don't
Right.
get Beyonce,
Right.
but we get, Kanye West. Jay-Z was here once a few years ago. So I think Kansas City is probably considered, like I said, a second tier town. And I think if you're a real hip-hop fan, you're probably a little disappointed in this town's history and,
Right.
and stature as a touring target.
Mm-hmm. On Friday, we'll do a Kansas City profile with Bob Walkenhorst, the leader of the Rainmakers, who has been such a fixture on the music scene. And we did this last week, so full disclosure. But he talked about, and we visited on this last week about the status of Kansas City as a music town right now. And he talked about when he came to Kansas City. He grew up just outside Kansas City in a small town, but worked in Branson for a while. When he came in the early 80s, it was really a extremely vibrant club music scene. Maybe tailed off a little bit, but now seems to be back. So it's a good history, I think, that maybe he reflects.
Right. When I remember, because when I was going to school in Lawrence at KU, I would see Steve, Bob, and Rich. That was my first exposure to Bob Walkenhorst. And they would play at the Jazz House regularly, but there was a really good independent kind of sort of underground scene going on in Lawrence. A lot of really bands that made names for themselves outside of Lawrence, nationally, like the Pedal Jets. There was a band called the Mortal Micronauts who had an affiliation with William Burroughs, who lived in Lawrence at the time. And Lawrence was sort of like in a bit like Seattle was later in the 90s, maybe
Right.
not quite as big, but it had a reputation that was well known, and KJHK was kind of a well known
Right.
Radio station that played a lot of
Right. I remember, I went to school in the late 70s and early 80s there. Well, I was there quite a while, full disclosure also. But they used to get, like the Go-Go's coming through town and bands like that and Tommy Two-Tone and
Right.
people like that who were, breaking. But the reason they were there was because KJHK was
Right.
playing their Bob Geldof. What was the band? Boomtown Rats. Saw them. So those type of bands got airplay at KJHK, so they would end up coming through.
Right, and they did the Day on the Hill, got to be pretty well known. I mean, this is later, but like Pearl Jam played one of those, and it was right north of the Campanile. So yeah, the interesting thing is that Lawrence is not nearly as much as a music town as it used to be. Like most of the shows come to Kansas City. It used to be
Right.
they would go to Liberty Hall, which I think used to be known as the Opera.
Free State Opera House.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, that had an interesting, during the time I was there, it was Free State Opera House, and you'd see like the Boomtown Rats there. Then it became a disco, like
I didn't know
upstairs
that.
and downstairs with a lighted dance floor for a little while. Then it returned to becoming a venue,
Right.
and now, of course, it's a music venue and a movie theater. So,
Right, and before it
and maybe that reflects that it's a movie theater. It's essentially more a movie theater than a venue.
They don't do as many shows as they used to. But like the Bottleneck used to be a place called Cogburn's, and I think REM played there once, like in the early 80s before I was there. So yeah, it had a reputation for getting well-known bands as they were coming up or even before
Right.
they were well-known.
Right.
But it's not like that at all anymore. Pretty much just like the Granada does shows, and I don't know, no other venue does much.
reflect a little bit on what the impact, because we'll speak with him on Friday, and it's a fun topic, and it's a great interview with Bob Walkenhorst about the Rainmakers, and we talked about it a little bit, nearly making it super big, and then he's been just a fixture around here in the club scene forever now, and the Rainmakers are sort of back and play shows.
Right, so
it's kind of an arc of the music scene here a little bit.
So like I said, I saw them when they were Steve, Bob, and Rich, and Steve is now a member of the Elders, who have sort of retired. We'll see.
Right, some of those, like I was a big fan of the band called The Secrets when I was in Lawrence, and some of those people are become in the Elders also.
Well, and then Pat is the drummer,
right,
for the Rainmakers. Yeah, but I remember when they switched and became something completely different from Steve, Bob, and Rich. But that record went viral,
right?
That version of viral 30 years ago. And they, were written up in Newsweek, and Stephen King was a really big fan.
We talk all about that, yeah.
So it was a big deal, and I saw their New Year's Eve show at the Uptown in 1986, 87, so that New Year's Eve. And it was packed, and it seemed like it was inevitable that they were going to be huge, but they just they couldn't flip that switch for some reason. And because they were a little, they weren't mainstream,
Right.
And their lyrics were kind of demanding. Bob's a really intellectual, thoughtful guy, so
right.
That might have been why. And I know they ended up.
He has a unique vocal style too.
Exactly.
Maybe some.
Right.
I like it. I enjoy it. I think it's unique. A voice doesn't have to be of a certain perfection.
Right.
But for some people, maybe it wasn't their thing.
It's off-putting. Yeah, it's kind of like Geddy Lee for Rush.
Right. Well, that was off-putting for me for a long time,
sure.
Despite how great they were. He's hardly that voice, but it's a unique voice.
Right.
But I think it fit the music.
Right, and they just weren't. They're melodic, but they're not poppy. So
right.
Yeah, it was disappointing what happened to them. I guess everybody, and then that puts stress on a band, and then people leave the band and they stop. But I know they ended up in serious debt to their record label, which that's another thing that you don't see is like what's the politics inside the label, and if someone who represents you gets fired or leaves the label, then you've kind of lost your advocacy, and you can get set aside, and you're not getting support, and it kills many a band, that kind of stuff, the label politics.
No doubt about that. And who would we say, just off the top, I'm trying to think, who might in our era, per se, say from the 1980s, from Kansas City, who has had the most success, do we think?
Oh, several bands. I would say Samantha Fish right off the bat. She's doing really well. Doing all the major festivals, not just on this continent, but like she's in Australia now.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure she'll be doing some of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. She lives in New Orleans now.
Right.
And I think she's really well known. Madison Ward and the Mama Bear, they're sort of in a place. I think they're working on a new record, so they're kind of in limbo now. But I think their label's still behind them. I just talked to a guy from a band called Making Movies. Enrique G is their lead singer, and they've got a record coming out that's going to be. I'm not going to guarantee it, but if it doesn't get a Grammy nomination, I'll be surprised because of the guests he has on the band. It's Ruben Blades, who's like one of the biggest salsa musicians in the world. Has worked with them, did a song with them, and the single they're going to release on May 3rd is a song that he wrote with Lou Reed back in like the late 80s.
Wow.
And he gave it to them. He gave them the demo, and I heard their version of it. It's a radio friendly, ready, poppy rock, Latin rock thing that I can't miss. Like if that doesn't get them on like some late night show, I'll be surprised. So I think they've been at it for 10 years now, and they're at the point where if this doesn't work, then nothing will. Like if this doesn't propel them to the next level, and they're at a pretty good level now. So I keep an eye on them.
I don't know the answer to this question, so that's why I'm asking. Does the title of their band have anything to do with the Dire Straits? album.
Yes. As far as I remember,